What do you see when you look at a slalom course? And that
I
can
don't know.
change, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that depends on where you're at.
Let's say we're at Predator Bay, you're pulling into the lake and you're dropping down the hill and you look over and you see just glass and the course. And there's a feeling. What's that feeling? Let's say you're in a good space, you've been skiing really well. There's a pro event happening at Predator Bay and you're pulling into the lake. What do you feel when you look at the course? You know, what emotion does that bring up? Or because you use words if you can, because obviously I can't to ask the question.
Um,
What words does that evoke?
I would say excitement and freedom. Excitement because okay, well, Predator Bay is a very nice sight, and coming over the hill is always a very cool feeling when you look down. Also, there's maple leaf full of stones, so that one's
Yep.
pretty nice.
Yep.
But just like pulling in there, um, it's exciting to get back on the water, especially if you're in a good spot to go and push yourself and see kind of if it was at a pro event, see if all your trainings kind of been going well and show people what you can do. And then just exciting to like see the course and know you're going to be back out on the water. I think being on the water is a feeling that is pretty special, and there's a very low amount of population in the world that gets to have that.
So when you look at a course, when you look at a slalom course, we know we're like, okay, slalom course is there. My goal is to go run as many buoys as I can. Like that's the goal. That's the ultimate outcome. But what does the slalom course do for you? What has it done for you in your career? The act of trying to beat or compete with the slalom course, 6 buoys, 6 turns. How has that changed you?
Six turns.
Yeah.
I think that's, I mean, it like any sport teaches you definitely a lot of lessons. Slalom can be pretty frustrating,
Yeah. What's a
as
lesson you've learned
many
from
people
skiing?
know, with the ups and downs. So just to be patient and kind of stick with it, and then obviously training, time management, and then interaction with your competitors and coaches as well. That stuff's all going to carry over to real life experiences.
Give me an example of a time you were either super frustrated with skiing or super ecstatic, and how it taught you something or a challenge you had to overcome.
Well, the one that comes to mind would be, I think we've talked about this before, so I won't get super in depth with it, but going to Junior Worlds in Chile in 2016, I had to fundraise in order to get there. And the pressure of all the people that donated in order to get me to Worlds was weighing on my mind a lot, and I didn't tell anybody about it. And I just tried to suppress that feeling, and I ended up being the most nervous I've ever been in my life, and skiing pretty poorly in prelims. And I ended up making finals, squeaking in. But that was a terrible feeling, like getting in the water and getting more nervous, running my first pass, getting more nervous. It was just like not something I'd felt before. And so after that, I like kind of voiced my concerns and talked to different people, and things got better. I ended up skiing really well there. So I think that's one, is like always listening to yourself, to your brain. Don't suppress anything you're feeling because it's valid.
Yeah,
And trying to like understand what you're feeling in order to move forward.
that's cool. I like that. Makes you a better person. Being a better human through water skiing. I like
There
that.
you go.
All because of a slalom course.
Yes.
So I'm going to break the course down into 3 phases. So you have the acceleration phase, which is like pulling out for the gates or from the finish of the turn to center line. You have the transition phase, which is kind of what it means, like going from a cutting edge to a turning edge. And then you have the, like pre-turn / apex. So like when you're actually negotiating a change in direction. So what is a key for you on the acceleration phase as a skier? what's one fundamental, if that's what you're trying to focus on, that you can think of, or that you have used in the past, one concept, one thought experiment, or one mental key that you carry with you um, to improve the acceleration phase of skiing.
Acceleration phase, I kind of try and think about keeping like my glutes and my core activated and trying to drive my hips in the direction I want to go. So whether that's pulling up for my gates, if I'm standing stacked over top of my ski, and when I want to move out for my gates is like taking my hips, pushing them off the left and kind of forward of my ski and trying to drive my hips towards where I want to move. And then the same thing would happen. So if you're out of one ball, if you hook up, trying to take like essentially my belly button and drive it towards where two ball is.
Okay. What are you doing with your arm? Like, what's the arm pressure like coming out of one, and you just got your second hand back on the handle, you've accepted the load from the boat. What kind of arm pressure distribution do you have when you're on that acceleration phase towards two?
I try and keep it pretty balanced because when I get too much in my leading arm, I tend to drop my shoulder and I get pinned down. So I would say probably like 60-40 maybe out of one ball. And then as I start to move through my transition, I'm going to try and keep more of the load. Like as I go through the wake, more of the load's going to transfer into that leading arm to try and keep the connection to the handle on the boat as I move through the transition.
Yeah. Okay. So glutes on, moving your body in the direction you want to go, moving your hips in the direction you want to go. What happens during the transition phase? What's something, if you're trying to clean that up, if you're trying to improve that part of your skiing and only that part of your skiing, what's something that you found works for you to get you to a better place on those transition phases?
So we've referred to it earlier, but through the transition, trying to pull my feet behind me. I think in order to be able to do that, it kind of couples with the acceleration phase of being able to transfer some of that load into my leading arm. So I'll have leading arm pressure and then pulling my feet beneath me or behind me to roll over top of my ski through the transition.
What are you thinking about, like foot pressure distribution? Where is it front foot, back foot through that transition phase? As far as like, where do you feel the pressure through your feet? Is it mostly front foot, mostly back foot? Is it a balance between the two? What would you say ideally is for you?
I would say early transition, I'm trying to like kind of push through my feet and keep myself extended so that my knees aren't coming up and I'm really absorbing anything, like trying to stay strong through my feet. And then as I start to transition and start to move my feet underneath of me, then that weight distribution will move more over top of my front foot, and that's maybe when my heel would kind of pick up a little bit.
And then you stay like that all the way into apex?
Yeah, into apex, I kind of like will further roll up and kind of like allow myself to move over top of my ski. And then that's when I can decide when I want to allow my feet to kind of move away from me. And once again, my hip's going to move inside of my ski.
Sounds like you feel or focus quite a bit on controlling your feet, where they go through the transition, and where they go as you're coming into the buoy, and where they go just before you get to apex. Sounds like that's a big focus for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think if I have control over my feet, I have control over my skiing. So if I lose control of my feet, I'm just kind of along for the ride. Whereas if I have control of my feet, I can really decide what's going to happen through the course and dictate where I'm going or what I want to do.
Yeah, it's good. What are you doing in the apex, from apex back to two hands on the handle? What's a key? What's a focal point? What's a deciding factor for you that tips the scale from not so great to like, yes, that felt really good?
Still working on this part. I would say that's a part of my problem on my onside. I struggle through the apex. It's all connected transition as well through my onside, but same thing as like once I'm in my transition, I've moved up over top of my ski, and then it's leading into the acceleration phase of moving my hips back inside. So my feet are going to swing out. That's when I have the control, since I've rose over top of my feet. They're going to swing out. I'm going to move my hips back towards the next buoy, and then really try and drive through my front foot and allow my ski to kind of smear a bit through the tail and pick up. And then I'm back into acceleration phase of driving my hips to the next buoy.
It's cool. I guess I haven't really, we've talked quite a bit obviously over the years, but the foot control is a key thing. I think that's really good for people. It helps people. I know talking to Mateo, one of the things he mentioned about just improving human performance is that for humans, it's easier sometimes, like in golf at the driving range, it's easier, instead of thinking about what your body's doing through a swing, it's easier to think about the face or the head of the club. So a distant object farthest away from you, and what the orientation of the club head is when you're striking the ball. So for me, you're doing that with skiing. You're saying, okay, where are my feet? How am I managing their movement? And you're allowing that to be your guide, to help you get into athletic stance, to help you control the pressure through your feet, to help you control the line tension, and ultimately to help you dictate where and when you get to turn, and then which way you move from that point.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a big key for me.
And how much has snow skiing played into that? I mean, your awareness of that.
Probably a lot, I would think. I mean, snow skiing, you're not connected to anything. So none of that kind of connection of load through your upper body has to do with snow skiing. It's solely your connection to the snow and being able to allow your feet to move away from you and then kind of pull back underneath you and transition into the next turn. So I think that would be where a lot of the crossover would come from between the two sports.
Awesome. I got one more question. What do you think is the biggest misconception in water skiing, or a huge misconception, technical misconception of water skiing?
That you need to load hard to go somewhere. I think like excuse me, obviously the whole like lean hard, pull hard isn't still a turn hard, pull hard kind of thing, isn't really, we've passed that in skiing. But I think people still try and maybe load really hard out of the finish of the turn. They're like, oh, I need to still get a lot of angle here, and then I'm going to be able to, the more angle I get, the better. I'm going to be earlier. I'm going to be a better skier if my turn's better. I don't think that that's necessarily correct, or it hasn't worked for me. I find if I can get a good turn, that's great. But then if I'm able to kind of build into the wakes, I'm able to carry outbound. Whereas if I get max load right out of the buoy, I just get pulled up. So I think being lighter on the line is actually better than being tough, like having more load, and being progressive would be also a very big part of it.
That's awesome. Light and progressive. But it's so much fun to pull hard.
Yeah, and then you get slingshotted.
Yeah. I mean, that's sometimes, yeah, yep, I know that one. But it is sometimes fun to lock and load. I mean, that's part of why we love to ski. And I try to remind people this is to pay attention to the sensations, because that's what got us to ski to begin with. We got on a water ski when we were a kid, or when we were a teen, or when we were an adult, and we're like, shit, this feels awesome. This is fun. Like the sensation is awesome, sometimes awesome feelings, like feelings of acceleration or a really strong change in direction. Freddie Winter is like not ideal, like high load situations, even though they may feel awesome, like you're doing so much work and you deserve a gold star when you get to the other side of the wakes. is not reality. Like it's often like that measured, calculated, precise set of movements that will get you the ultimate outcome. You know, like in golf, same thing. You go to the driving range and you could like swing as hard as you can, and like 2 times out of 10, you're going to make connection. It's going to go kind of the direction you want it to go, but the other 8 times it's going to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's how skiing
I'm
is.
very bad at golf.
If you you're really good at skiing, so you make up for it. Yeah, just if you load hard, it can be a knockout punch sometimes with a hard load out of the buoy, but 8 out of 10 times it's going to end badly, probably. So I like that. Big misconception. All right, buddy. That was good. I'm gonna hit end record now.
Right.
Technique, equipment, fitness, nutrition, mindset, the 5 components to success on the water. Our mission from the beginning has been to figure out how to help you become the best skier you can be. To do that, we've studied every single aspect of this sport and simplified it into the most fundamental concepts so that you don't have to. The Flowpoint Method is the first and only all-inclusive program with the best information and tools to help you become the best skier you can be. Sign up today for a free trial and see for yourself.